Hello, welcome to Introduction to Business Finance, Chapter 11b. In this chapter, we're going to be taking some of the things that we learned about discounted cash flow valuations and apply them to some real-worldy types of situations. So, for example, we'll be looking at a situation where you may have two mutually exclusive projects. So you can do Project A or Project B. You can't do both. How do we use discounted cash flow methods to determine which is the best project to do? And then we're also going to be looking at a new method, which is not a discounted cash flow method, called the payback method. And we'll see how that works for comparing projects and how rarely, sometimes but rarely, it turns out to be the best method to use. So you know what's next. Let's jump right in. Let's take a second to review the assumptions we've been using so far when we've been doing discounted cash flow analysis. We've been pretty much always assuming that the projects we're looking at are independent and that our budget has been unlimited. So the implications of this is that a decision to pursue some sort of project, Project A, really has no bearing on whether or not we will pursue Project B, because we have all the money in the world and the two projects don't affect each other. And so the implications of this were that we could pursue any project that had a positive NPV, an IRR higher than our opportunity cost of capital, or a BCR ratio greater than 1. So now let's consider a realistic situation that often comes up, and that's mutually exclusive projects. So what do we mean by that? A set of mutually exclusive projects means that if we pursue project A, we can't pursue project B. So we say A and B are mutually exclusive. So what would be some examples of this? Outside of finance, we could say, well, today we can either walk to work or drive to work, but we can't do both. And if we're looking at a gorge over a river with room for only one bridge, and we want to build a bridge across this gorge, we could say, well, we could build a suspension bridge or an arched bridge, but we couldn't build both because there's not room over the gorge. So in all these cases, we have to decide which alternative is best. And we haven't had to do that before because of our assumptions. So for now, let's consider mutually exclusive projects, and let's consider our budget still being unlimited at the time. We can change that later. And the first type of projects that I want to focus on is mutually exclusive equal length projects, which are called for short MEEL projects. So these are mutually exclusive projects that are evaluated at the same PV time, the same T equals 0, right? And they involve cash flows going out into the future for the same number of years, or we could say, if we didn't want to work with years, the same time period. Okay, so here's an example. So let's say we can only buy, for one reason or another, one 10-year bond, and we can choose, let's say 2 bonds. We can choose either a 10-year zero coupon bond or a 10-year annual pay bond. So we got to decide which one is best. Both of these projects go out for 10 years. The final cash flow for the project in each case is end of year 10. So that's what makes them equal length projects. And they're mutually exclusive in this case because I've said, for whatever reason, we can only do one or the other. So what we want to know now is how to make this decision. If we have a couple of mutually exclusive equal length projects, we want to know which one is best. And it turns out there are two answers. The first answer, and really the most important answer, happens when we use our DCF methods. And in this case, the correct answer is always the project with the bigger NPV. Okay, this is always the correct answer when we're using DCF method analysis. And as you'll see in the appendix to this chapter, which as you know is optional and you don't have to look at, but I know you're so excited about all this finance stuff that you're going to spend countless hours digging through the appendix to this chapter. Just kidding. But anyway, if you look in the appendix, you'll see why BCR and IRR may give the wrong answer. But the good news is the project with the bigger NPV always gives you the right answer. Okay, so again, look in the chapter appendix, which is optional. All chapter appendices are optional if you want to understand why this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so second of all, if we are for some reason analyzing projects using what's called the payback method, the correct answer is going to be the project that recovers our costs quickest, okay? And as we'll see when we go along, it's almost always best to use the DCF method analysis, right? Method A. Okay, so inquiring minds among us might be wondering, looking on this page, what is this payback method he's talking about? He hasn't introduced it yet. What's going on? So let's solve that problem right now. So what is the payback period evaluation method? Two important things to know about this. It's not a discounted cash flow method, and it does not even consider time value of money in any way that we've looked at before with compounding. Right, so it doesn't use any of our compounding future value, present value formula, any of that jazz. Okay, so here's how it works. It's pretty simple. The payback method just says the best project is the one that recovers our costs quickest. Okay, and this is something that many people used to use for a long time, and it's really almost always not as good a method as comparing the NPVs of the projects. So let's see why, and let's think about this. So let's do an example. Let's look at two projects. The opportunity cost of capital for both is 10%, and these are going to be MEL projects, so i.e. they're mutually exclusive, and you can see here they both end at the same time at T2. So they are equal length. So we've got mutually exclusive equal length projects, project A and B. So both of them are going to require cash flows of 10, let's say million dollars at T equals 0. And project 1, we hope and expect, is going to return us a cash flow of 15 million after a year and another million after 2 years. And project B, the same 10 million required at T equals 0. We got nothing at the end of year 1. We don't get anything until the end of year 2. But look at that. We get a huge blob of money at end of year 2 of 50 million. So those are our two projects. And what I'd like to do is think about when the payback method might be the best method to use for this and when our DCF NPV method might be the best thing to use. So if we look at the payback method, okay, just by inspection here, we can see that the costs are recovered fastest here. Okay, because we put out 10 million and in a year, those costs are completely recovered. For project B, we put out 10 million and we have to wait 2 years to recover our costs. So therefore, the payback method says that project A is best. Okay, so let's think about when this might be right and when it might not be right. Okay, so in our DCF time value of money framework, we can get the NPV for project A. That's going to be minus 10, and then that's going to be plus 15 divided by 1 plus 10% raised to the 1 plus 1 over 1 plus 10% raised to the 2. And let's just see if I'm here to tell you that the answer is 4.46 to this NPV, but you know by now you should never trust my numerical calculations. So let's see what we get. Okay, so I put this into Excel and I get the same answer, so I'm pretty happy. And you see how I'm doing this here. I use Excel as an electric pencil, put in what I want, and then here I just replace the hollowth, the little asterisk there, with the equal, and it computes it for me. Okay, good. So now for the second one, we have minus 10 plus, we have nothing at year 1, so I'm not even going to bother about that. But at year 2, we have 50 divided by 1 plus 10% raised to the 2. And I'm telling you that's 31.32, but I don't even trust myself, so I'm going to put that into Excel. See what we get, 31.32. So that looks good. Okay, so what can we conclude about this? So the NPV of B is clearly much bigger than A. So these are equal length projects. We can only do one of them. So which one are we going to do? Well, remember what we learned in the last chapter about our DCF methods. The project B increases our wealth more than project A. And that's what it's all about. We want to choose the projects that maximize the increase in our wealth. Clearly, the one with the bigger NPV is the one that does that. So the DCF method says project B is best. Okay. This is almost always the best way to analyze mutually exclusive equal length projects. Just look at them both, compute the NPVs, and whichever one has the bigger NPV, that's the one you choose. Why? Because it maximizes the increase in our wealth. Okay, but when might the payback period be the better answer? Let's think of a situation like this. Let's say we're a small company and we've got to borrow the 10 million to start the project. So we're going to have to pay that 10 million back, okay? So maybe that's all we have in our company. And if that's the case, we can't pay interest on the 10 million for 2 years. So we can't wait 2 years to get that 50 million back because we have no way to pay our interest along the way. We'll go bankrupt, okay? But project A does give us the ability to pay back the interest and the principal in a year. And so that could work for us. So that would keep us from going bankrupt. And that's really our only choice, okay? Project A is in this case the best option. It may be the only plausible option. So examples would be something like real estate construction projects. Consider a project where you get a construction loan. Okay, so typically you get a construction loan, you don't pay any interest on it because the property you're building isn't generating any cash flow, and the loan comes due in, say, a year. So in this case, if construction is delayed beyond a year, the developer of the project will go bankrupt because the loan's going to be for that fixed term and the project's taking longer than they thought and they're going to go bankrupt. And another thing that would happen very often is that if you're a developer and you're looking at these two projects, you go out to banks and try and get construction loans. They'll give you a construction loan for this one, but they won't give you a construction loan for this one. Why? Too risky. Market conditions may change a lot in 2 years, certainly a lot more than over just 1 year. Okay, so that's all we need to cover in this chapter. There's a lot of great stuff in the appendix. Like I said, we cover in the appendix why when we're looking from a DCF framework, why the NPV method is the only one that can tell us which mutually exclusive equal length project is correct. We look in the appendix at mutually exclusive unequal length projects, and then we look at deciding what projects to do under capital rationing, i.e. when our budget is limited. As always, you're not responsible for the stuff in the appendix, but I'm here to tell you it's really exciting. And in all your spare time, I hope you spend some time with it. Okay, that's it for me right now, so I'll catch up with you soon.